Hey guys, tonight we arrive somewhere warm, dusty, and gently overwhelming. The kind of place where the air feels baked rather than hot, and the bricks under your feet still hold the memory of the sun. You're standing at the edge of ancient Babylon, and it's evening, which is fortunate because midday here would absolutely defeat you. You're already blinking more than you'd like, squinting at mud brick walls that glow faintly orange, as if the city itself is trying to wind down for the night. You step forward, and the ground is firm but uneven, packed earth smoothed by thousands of patient footsteps. The Euphrates isn't far, and even before you see it, you hear it, a slow, reassuring slosh that feels like the world's oldest white noise machine. Somewhere behind you, a donkey complains about something deeply personal, and you decide not to get involved. You are, after all, here to relax, not to referee livestock disputes. This is Babylon at the end of the workday, when scribes begin to stretch their cramped fingers and let their shoulders drop. You probably wouldn't survive this lifestyle long term. By the way, no caffeine, no ergonomic chairs, no backlit screens, just clay, reeds, and the expectation that you remember thousands of tiny wedge-shaped marks without complaint. It's soothing in retrospect, but in real time, your wrists would absolutely file a protest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there, right now. Babylonian scribes would be fascinated by that, mostly because they loved knowing exactly where people were and when. Timekeeping was kind of their thing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You move deeper into the city, guided by the low murmur of voices and the soft thud of sandals against stone. Babylon is busy, but not rushed. People here understand something modern life often forgets. Urgency is optional after sunset. The great walls loom nearby, massive and steady, and historians agree they were among the most impressive defensive structures of the ancient world. Standing beneath them, you feel pleasantly small, like a cat tucked against a bookshelf. The air smells faintly of river water, baked clay, and something sweet you can't quite place yet. You'll discover later that it's honey, but for now, it's just a hint, a promise. Oil lamps flicker in doorways, their flames wavering like they're also tired. You pass a group of apprentices carrying tablets, each one holding their work as carefully as if it might wander off on its own. Babylonian scribes are everywhere, quietly holding the city together. This is a widely accepted fact. Scribes were essential to administration, trade, religion, and astronomy. If it needed recording, a scribe was involved. You don't conquer empires without paperwork, and Babylon was very, very good at paperwork. You stop near a courtyard where several scribes are gathering, easing themselves down onto low benches. Their posture tells a story all its own. Shoulders roll back, necks tilt side to side, fingers flex slowly, as if waking up from a long nap, even though they've been awake all day. Writing cuneiform required pressing a reed stylus into clay at precise angles, and after hours of that, your hands would feel like overworked dough. One scribe notices you hovering and gives you a look that says, politely, "You're welcome here, but please don't touch anything wet." Clay tablets are unforgiving, and smudging someone's work is a fast way to be quietly disliked. Babylonian politeness is subtle but firm. As evening deepens, the city's colors soften. The sky fades from blue to lavender, and then to a dusky gray that feels like a blanket being pulled gently over the world. You hear laughter, low and restrained, the kind that comes from shared understanding rather than punchlines. There are jokes here, but they're dry. Archaeologists have found tablets where scribes complained about their bosses, their students, and the quality of beer. Some things truly never change. One lesser-known detail about Babylonian scribes is that many of them copied the same texts again and again, not because they needed duplicates, but because repetition was the training. Writing itself became a calming loop, familiar enough to be reassuring. Think of it like rewriting your grocery list just to feel organized. Except the grocery list is about lunar eclipses and temple inventories. You sit nearby, feeling the ground cool beneath you. Someone brings water in a shallow bowl, and you sip carefully, aware that this is filtered only by optimism. Still, it tastes clean enough, and the act of drinking feels ceremonial, like a signal to your body that the day is officially winding down. Overhead, the first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then clearer. Babylonian astronomers, often scribes themselves, were among the earliest systematic star watchers. They tracked planetary movements with impressive accuracy, and historians still wonder if their calm devotion to the sky was scientific curiosity, religious reverence, or simply a good excuse to stand outside and decompress after a long day of accounting. You glance at the scribes again. Some are quiet eyes half closed. Others murmur to one another, trading observations about the day. There's no rush to leave. The city allows this pause, this gentle exhale. Even the walls seem to lean in, listening. You feel it too, that slow adjustment as your breathing deepens without being told to. Your shoulders drop. Your thoughts begin to stretch out, less crowded, like a marketplace at closing time. Nothing urgent, nothing sharp. Just the steady sense that you've arrived somewhere safe and unhurried. The Euphrates continues its patient song. The stars settle into their places, and Babylon prepares for night. You're not writing yet, you're not counting yet. For now, you're simply here, letting the city introduce itself at its own pace, and it's already teaching you how to rest. You don't realize how much your body has been holding until you try to sit the way the scribes do. One of them gestures for you to take a low wooden stool, the kind that looks harmless until you actually lower yourself onto it. There's no backrest, no cushion, and certainly no ergonomic certification. You sit anyway because everyone else is sitting. And you don't want to be the only person standing, like you're waiting for a bus that will never arrive. Your knees bend sharply. Your spine straightens without negotiation. Within seconds, muscles you forgot existed begin sending polite but firm messages. Babylonian scribes, it turns out, don't just train their minds. They train their bodies to endure stillness. This posture isn't accidental. It's learned, practiced, and quietly perfected over years. A senior scribe nearby shifts his weight with minimal effort, as if his bones have memorized this position. He glances at you, just briefly, and you get the sense he knows exactly how uncomfortable you are. He doesn't comment. Babylonian kindness often takes the form of letting you struggle in peace. Scribes typically trained from a young age, often beginning as boys in tablet houses known as edabas. This is a widely accepted historical fact, and it explains a lot. When you start sitting like this at age 7, your body eventually gives up and adapts. Historians still debate whether this training built discipline or simply filtered out anyone with weak knees. You adjust slightly, trying to look casual, like you always sit like this. Your hands rest on your thighs. The air feels cooler now, the heat finally loosening its grip. Somewhere nearby, a lamp crackles softly, the flame flickering like it's also trying to stay awake. One of the scribes begins a slow stretch, rolling his shoulders forward, then back. The movement, deliberate and almost ceremonial, others follow. This is part of the unwinding. Writing cuneiform all day means leaning forward, wrists angled just so. eyes focused intensely on small, precise impressions. At the end of the day, the body needs reassurance that it can exist in other shapes. You copy the movement, and it helps. A little, enough that you don't immediately regret your life choices. There's a lesser-known detail about scribal training that feels relevant now. Posture was considered part of professional competence. A scribe who slouched too much or shifted constantly might be seen as unfocused or careless. Sitting well was a sign of inner order. You try not to fidget. You fail quietly. The ground beneath your feet is cool, and you focus on that sensation. The city sounds soften as night takes over. Conversations lower in volume, not because anyone says so, but because everyone understands the assignment. Babylon doesn't sleep suddenly. It eases. A young apprentice passes by, moving carefully, holding a tablet against his chest like it might startle. His posture is stiff, overly precise, as if he's still being watched, even when no one is looking. You recognize that feeling. The posture of someone who hasn't yet learned when it's safe to relax. The senior scribes notice him too. One raises an eyebrow, another suppresses a smile. No one corrects him. This, too, is part of learning. Eventually, the apprentice will figure out when to soften, when to let the shoulders drop. It's a skill, not a failure. You shift again, slower this time, and discover a slightly better balance. Your breathing deepens without effort. The stool stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like a challenge you're slowly winning. This is how it works here. Nothing rushes. Comfort arrives gradually, like a cat deciding whether to sit on your lap. Someone nearby mutters a dry comment about the day's work, something about a merchant who couldn't count his own sheep. A few quiet chuckles follow. Scribal humor is understated but effective. Imagine accounting jokes delivered with the confidence of people who know they control the written record. Power has a sense of humor. Apparently, there's an ongoing historical debate about how much freedom scribes had in their daily routines. Some scholars argue they were tightly controlled by temples or palaces. Others believe experienced scribes enjoyed considerable autonomy, especially in the evenings. Watching them now, lingering, stretching, chatting softly, you suspect the truth sits somewhere in between. Structure by day, flexibility by night. A breeze passes through the courtyard, carrying the smell of water and distant cooking fires. Your skin prickles pleasantly. You realize you're no longer thinking about the stool. That feels like progress worth celebrating quietly. One scribe reaches for a small jar of oil and rubs a drop between his palms before massaging it into his wrists. The scent is mild, herbal, calming. Hand care matters when your livelihood depends on fine motor control. This isn't indulgence. It's maintenance. Ancient self-care, minus the branding. You flex your own fingers, noticing the subtle stiffness from a life that involves keyboards rather than clay. For a moment, you imagine explaining that to these scribes. Tiny, glowing rectangles. Endless scrolling. They would absolutely judge you, politely. The sky darkens further, stars sharpening into clarity. Sitting still becomes easier now, your body syncing with the slower rhythm of the city. The posture that once felt rigid now feels grounding, like the physical equivalent of being told everything is under control. You glance around and realize no one is in a hurry to lie down. Rest here doesn't mean collapse. It means steady, upright presence. Being awake but not strained. Alert but not anxious. It's a balance modern life rarely encourages. Your eyelids grow heavy anyway. That's fine. No one minds. A scribe across from you blinks slowly, his head dipping for a second before lifting again. This is communal unwinding, and it's forgiving. By the time you straighten one last time, adjusting your spine almost without thinking, you understand why this posture mattered. It teaches patience. It teaches stillness. It teaches your body that rest doesn't always mean stopping completely. Sometimes it means holding yourself gently and letting the night do the rest. Your hands finally have something to do, which is a relief. Because sitting still without purpose is a skill you have not fully unlocked yet. A shallow tray of clay is placed nearby, its surface smooth and faintly cool, like the world's most cooperative mud. One of the scribes gestures casually, the ancient equivalent of saying, "Go ahead, but don't mess it up." You reach in, and the clay yields under your fingers with a soft resistance that feels immediately grounding. This is river clay, collected from the Euphrates, cleaned and kneaded until it's ready to hold thoughts. It smells earthy and neutral, and there's something deeply calming about that. No sharp edges. No surprises. Just a substance that waits for you to decide what it will become. Clay tablets are the backbone of Babylonian record-keeping, a widely accepted historical fact that feels more intimate when the material is actually in your hands. You realize quickly why scribes found this work soothing. The process is slow by design. You can't rush clay. If you try, it pushes back, cracks, or collapses in quiet protest. A reed stylus is offered to you. It's simple, cut at an angle, nothing fancy. You test its weight, rolling it between your fingers. It feels balanced, like it wants to be used patiently. You press it lightly into the clay, and a small wedge appears. Not elegant, not terrible, acceptable, barely. Around you, scribes work without hurry, their movements economical and confident. Each press of the stylus is deliberate, but not tense. You notice the rhythm first. Press, lift, shift, press again. It's repetitive in the best way, like knitting or breathing. Your thoughts begin to line up behind the motion. There's a lesser-known detail about cuneiform that becomes obvious now. Many signs are built from repeated wedges. Once your hand memorizes the angles, the writing becomes almost automatic. This is why scribes could copy long texts for hours without losing their minds. The body takes over, and the mind gets to wander just enough to rest. You try another line, focusing less on perfection and more on consistency. The clay records everything honestly. Every hesitation, every confident press. There's no delete key, which feels alarming at first, then oddly freeing. Mistakes simply exist. They dry, get archived, and become part of the story. There's something comforting about that. A scribe nearby glances at your tablet and nods once. High praise. Apparently, you feel absurdly proud. The city continues its slow descent into night. Lamps glow brighter as the sky darkens, their light reflecting softly off the damp clay. Shadows stretch and blur. The sound of the river remains steady, like a metronome set to calm. You notice small details now. The way scribes occasionally pause, flexing their fingers before continuing. The faint scrape of stylus against clay. The quiet satisfaction of filling a tablet evenly, edge to edge. This isn't just writing. It's a physical conversation between hand and material. Historians still wonder whether scribes found more comfort in the act of writing itself or in the order it imposed on the world. Watching them now, it's easy to believe it was both. When everything can be counted, named, and recorded, chaos feels less threatening. Someone makes a soft joke about a tablet that cracked earlier in the day, blaming the clay rather than the writing. A few smiles follow. The humor here is gentle, never sharp. No one is performing. It's humor meant to dissolve tension, not draw attention. You add another line to your tablet and feel your breathing sync with your hands. This is the kind of focus that doesn't exhaust you. it steadies you. Modern meditation apps would charge a monthly fee for this feeling. The clay cools slightly as the night air settles in. You realize your shoulders have dropped, your jaw unclenched. Writing has done what it always does best, given your mind a place to rest without going blank. One tablet is finished and set aside to dry. It won't be fired tonight. That comes later, if it's important enough. For now, it exists in a liminal state, like a thought you don't need to act on yet. You like that? Not everything needs immediate permanence. A debate drifts through the group about whether certain signs should be written with 3 wedges or 4. It's low stakes but sincere. Historians still debate similar questions today, which feels oddly comforting. Some arguments never really end. They just get quieter. You wipe your hands on a cloth, leaving faint traces of clay behind. Your fingers feel pleasantly tired, the way they do after a good stretch. This kind of fatigue doesn't ask for stimulation. It asks for rest. The tray of clay is covered. The stylus is set aside. No one announces the end of the activity. It simply concludes, like a thought reaching its natural stopping point. The night has deepened. The stars are brighter now. The city feels held, contained. You sit back, tablet complete, hands empty, mind calm. Writing didn't energize you, it settled you. And as the clay begins its quiet transformation from soft to solid, you feel something similar happening inside yourself. Your hands already know more than you think they do. When another tablet is placed in front of you, you don't hesitate this time. The stylus fits into your fingers like it's always lived there, and your wrist finds the angle without negotiation. This is muscle memory, waking up, stretching, and getting comfortable. You press the stylus into the clay again, and the motion feels smoother now. Press, lift, turn slightly. The wedges line up, not perfect, but confident. You're no longer translating thought into action with effort. The movement happens first, and the thought follows, which is the opposite of how your brain usually behaves. This is the quiet magic of cuneiform. A widely accepted historical fact is that experienced scribes could write quickly and accurately because their hands knew the shapes better than their conscious minds did. Writing became physical knowledge, like riding a bike or tying a knot you learned years ago and never forgot. Around you, the scribes fall into the same rhythm. The courtyard filled with the soft, percussive sound of stylus meeting clay. It's almost musical. Not a song you'd hum, but a pattern you could fall asleep to. If someone sampled this sound today and called it ancient ambient, it would have a very niche but devoted following. You notice one scribe working with his eyes half closed, the marks appearing in neat rows anyway. This isn't laziness, it's trust. His hands have done this so many times that they no longer require supervision. You briefly consider trying the same thing, then decide you're not ready for that level of confidence. There's a lesser-known quirk about scribal practice that feels relevant here. Students often copied the same text hundreds of times, not to memorize its meaning, but to perfect the motion. Content was secondary. Flow was everything. That kind of repetition doesn't bore the mind, it lulls it. Your breathing settles into the same tempo as your writing. Each line feels like a small exhale. You realize you haven't checked the sky in a while. Time has softened around you, losing its sharp edges. This is what happens when the body takes over the work of thinking. Someone nearby murmurs a comment about how a certain sign always feels slightly off, no matter how many times you write it. Another scribe nods in agreement. Historians still wonder if these tiny frustrations were intentional features of the script or just the inevitable result of human hands trying to impose order on clay. You make a small mistake, a wedge angled wrong. For a moment, your modern instincts flare, the urge to fix, correct, optimize. Then you remember where you are. The mistake stays. It becomes part of the tablet's personality. No one reacts. The world does not end. Babylon continues functioning just fine. A quiet chuckle passes through the group as someone else makes a more dramatic error, pressing too hard and cracking the edge of the tablet. The scribe sighs, shakes his head, and sets it aside. Tomorrow it will be recycled, the clay soaked and reshaped. Even errors get second chances here. The lamps burn steadily now, their light warmer, more intimate. Shadows overlap and blur, making it harder to tell where one person ends and another begins. There's a communal softness to the space, as if everyone has agreed, without saying it, to be gentle with themselves. Your hand begins to tire, but it's a pleasant tiredness, the kind that signals completion rather than exhaustion. You slow down naturally, the wedges growing slightly larger, the spacing more relaxed. No one rushes you. There's no deadline attached to rest. A scribe stretches his fingers again, rolling his wrists with exaggerated care. He mutters something about hands not being designed for this many ideas, which earns a few quiet smiles. The joke lands because it's true. Even in ancient Babylon, people felt the mismatch between imagination and anatomy. You finish the last line and set the stylus down. Your fingers tingle faintly, like they're still writing in the air. The tablet is gently lifted away, placed with the others. It will dry, harden, and outlast you by several thousand years, which is a strange thought, but not an alarming one. It feels calm, almost flattering. You lean back slightly, careful not to tip the stool, and let your hands rest in your lap. The absence of movement feels as intentional as the movement did moments ago. This, too, is part of the rhythm. Action followed by stillness. Thought followed by quiet. The stars overhead feel closer now, brighter, as if they've been leaning in while you weren't looking. Soon, you'll be joining the scribes in another familiar ritual, one that trades clay for sky. For now, you sit in the afterglow of repetition, where your mind hums softly and your body knows exactly what to do. The tablet in front of you this time is different, thinner, wider. Someone has smoothed it carefully, the surface prepared for numbers rather than words. You can tell by the way the scribes lean in a little straighter, their attention sharpening without becoming tense. Counting is coming. And counting, oddly enough, is where many of them find the most comfort. A senior scribe taps the edge of the tablet lightly and murmurs something about barley. That's your cue. You begin pressing wedges that represent quantities, repeating patterns that feel strangely reassuring. One wedge means one unit. Several wedges mean more. There's no drama here, just accumulation. Press, lift, repeat. The math is tactile, grounded, and refreshingly finite. This is a widely accepted historical fact. Babylonian scribes used a basic ST number system, which is why you still have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. As you mark the tablet, you realize you are participating in the ancient ancestor of every clock you've ever glanced at while waiting for something to end. The act of counting grain rations is deeply unglamorous, and that's precisely why it works as relaxation. No metaphors, no poetry, just numbers that add up the way they're supposed to. You notice how your mind stops wandering quite so wildly when it has something predictable to hold on to. A lesser-known detail emerges as one scribe quietly explains, half to you and half to himself, that these tallies weren't just administrative, they were reassuring. Knowing exactly how much grain was stored meant fewer surprises. Fewer surprises meant fewer panics. Order, here, is emotional regulation in clay form. You press another line of wedges and feel time flatten. There's no before or after, just this row, then the next. It reminds you of counting sheep, except the sheep are imaginary barley sacks, and they don't wander off halfway through. Someone nearby mutters that numbers are more honest than people. Another scribe replies that numbers lie too, just less creatively. A quiet laugh passes between them. These are the kinds of debates that feel important only until you get tired, and then they become funny. Historians still wonder how much mental strain this constant accounting placed on scribes. Was it soothing or quietly exhausting? Watching them now, you suspect the answer depended on the day. Tonight, at least, the numbers seem to behave themselves. You notice how counting creates its own rhythm, slightly different from writing words. It's steadier, more mechanical, like a slow drumbeat. Your breathing adjusts again, falling into step with the repetition. Each completed column feels like a small, harmless victory. A scribe finishes his tablet and leans back, closing his eyes for just a second. Not sleep, just rest. The kind you take when you trust the work to be done correctly. He opens his eyes again and stretches, satisfied. You add the final wedges, smooth the edge of the tablet, and pause. The numbers sit there quietly, making sense. They don't demand interpretation. They don't ask questions. They simply exist, balanced and complete. The tablet is set aside with the others, and you realize that counting hasn't energized you at all. It's calmed you. Your thoughts feel lined up, neatly stacked like grain in a storeroom. Nothing is overflowing. Nothing is missing. As the night deepens, the scribes shift their attention away from the tablets. Soon, their eyes will turn upward, toward something less predictable but just as comforting. For now, you sit with the gentle satisfaction of things that add up, letting the numbers fade softly from your mind. You follow the scribes as they rise, slow and unhurried, and drift toward the open edge of the courtyard. The tablets stay behind, covered and resting, as if they also understand their workday is over. Ahead of you, the sky has fully claimed the night, a deep, quiet blue, scattered with stars that look sharper here than they ever do back home. Someone brings out a wooden frame marked with lines, and another carries a tablet already etched with faint guides. This is where the day's mental labor gently transforms into something closer to wonder. Babylonian scribes didn't separate accounting from astronomy as cleanly as you might expect. Many of them were both record keepers and star watchers, a widely accepted historical fact that feels especially logical right now. You tilt your head back, and the stars seem to settle into place, patient and familiar. There's comfort in their reliability. The scribes murmur names softly, not the names you know, but older ones, heavy with meaning. Planets are tracked carefully here, their movements recorded night after night. Less for romance and more for reassurance. A lesser-known detail slips into conversation. Watching the sky was considered a form of mental rest. After hours spent staring downward at clay, lifting your gaze upward felt like letting your thoughts breathe. You feel it immediately. Your neck relaxes. Your chest opens. The city noises fall even quieter. One scribe points out a familiar pattern, tracing it with a finger against the air. You follow the gesture, imagining the invisible lines that connect the stars. There's no rush to get it right. This isn't a test. It's observation, repeated often enough to feel like companionship. Historians still debate whether Babylonian star charts were primarily scientific tools or spiritual guides. Standing here, you suspect the scribes didn't feel the need to choose. The sky could be useful and comforting at the same time. Categories are a modern obsession. A light joke drifts through the group about a star that never seems to behave, arriving early one season and late the next. Someone suggests it's just tired, which earns a few soft laughs. Even the heavens, apparently, are allowed off days. You copy the positions onto the tablet, your stylus moving more slowly now, deliberately. The clay feels cooler at night, firmer, less forgiving. That's fine. Precision feels less urgent under the stars. The act itself is what matters. A breeze passes through, carrying the faint smell of the river and distant vegetation. Lamps behind you cast long shadows, but your focus stays upward. This is one of the few times scribes aren't expected to look down, and you sense how rare and treasured that is. The stars don't flicker with city light here. They hold steady, ancient, and unconcerned. You feel small in a way that's comforting rather than unsettling, like being wrapped in something much larger than yourself. Someone murmurs a question about whether the stars influence events on Earth or simply observe them. No one answers. It's an old question, and it doesn't need resolving tonight. Historians still wonder how literally scribes believed in celestial omens versus using them as structured patterns to impose meaning on uncertainty. Your tablet fills slowly and then stops. There's nothing more to add. The sky has been observed sufficiently. You lower your head again, eyes adjusting back to lamplight, and feel a pleasant heaviness settle behind your eyes. The scribes linger a moment longer, as if reluctant to turn away. Then, gradually, they drift back toward the courtyard, carrying the quiet of the sky with them. You follow, stars still glowing faintly behind your closed eyelids, already softening your thoughts as the night continues its gentle work. You don't stop thinking about the stars when you step back into the courtyard. They follow you in quieter ways now, lingering behind your eyes like after images. The scribes seem to carry them too, moving a little more slowly, as if the sky has gently recalibrated everyone's pace. Someone settles back onto a stool with a long exhale, the kind that starts in the chest and ends somewhere near the toes. You do the same without realizing it. The predictability of the stars has done its work. Whatever chaos the day held feels less urgent now, less personal. A senior scribe begins speaking softly, almost to himself, about how the sky never surprises him the way people do. This isn't bitterness, it's appreciation. The stars rise when they're supposed to. They set when expected. Even their wandering follows rules, and that reliability is deeply soothing. This connects to a widely accepted historical fact. Babylonian astronomers were meticulous record keepers who identified repeating celestial cycles with impressive accuracy. Eclipses, planetary paths, seasonal shifts, all noted, compared, and trusted. In a world full of unpredictable harvests and human decisions, the sky offered consistency. You sit and listen, letting the words wash over you without trying to remember them. Tonight isn't about mastery. It's about familiarity. The scribes don't speak in lectures. They speak in fragments. Observations shared the way you might comment on the weather with a neighbor. A lesser-known detail surfaces as someone mentions that certain star observations were intentionally repeated, even when nothing new was expected to happen. Not because the data was needed, but because the act itself was calming. Watching the same star rise, night after night, created a sense of continuity, a reassurance that the world hadn't quietly unraveled while no one was looking. You imagine it like checking the locks on your door before bed. You know they're locked. You checked already, but checking again helps your mind settle. The stars were Babylon's locks. A quiet joke floats through the group about how at least the stars don't argue with scribes about incorrect numbers. Someone adds that if they did, the stars would still lose, because the tablets are forever. The humor is dry and comforting, like a well-worn blanket. Historians still wonder how much emotional comfort scribes consciously derived from celestial predictability. Did they know they were soothing themselves, or did it simply feel right without explanation? Sitting here, you suspect they didn't need to analyze it. Calm doesn't require justification. The night deepens further. The lamps seem softer now, their light less sharp. You feel heavier in your seat. Not from fatigue exactly, but from a sense of being anchored. The day no longer pulls at you. Tomorrow exists, but not insistently. A scribe beside you traces an invisible line in the air, marking where a star will appear later in the year. His finger moves slowly, confidently. There's no urgency in the gesture. Time stretches differently when you trust it to behave. You lean back slightly, careful again with the stool, and let your gaze drift upward one last time. The stars are still there, unchanged, unconcerned with your presence, yet somehow improved by it. Or maybe you're improved by them. It's hard to tell, and it doesn't matter. The group grows quieter, conversation tapering off naturally. No one announces silence. It arrives on its own, like sleep eventually does when you stop chasing it. You breathe in, slow and deep, and feel the last edges of mental noise soften. The stars have done their job. They've reminded you that some things move in patterns too large to rush, and that it's safe, sometimes, to simply trust the night. The quiet doesn't break so much as it gently changes flavor. Someone stands and disappears briefly into an adjoining room, and when they return, the air shifts. Sweetness arrives before you see anything, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Honey, warm grain. Something baked slowly and without urgency. A small platter is set down between the stools, carrying compact little cakes, golden brown and faintly glossy. They're simple, almost modest, and that's part of their charm. Honey cakes like these are a widely accepted part of Babylonian daily life, used both as offerings and as ordinary food. Tonight, they're neither sacred nor special, they're just deserved. You're handed one, still warm enough to notice. It fits neatly in your palm, dense but not heavy. You take a careful bite, and the texture surprises you, firm at first, then soft, the sweetness unfolding slowly rather than all at once. No sugar rush here, just steady comfort. A lesser-known detail emerges as someone mentions, casually, that honey was one of the few reliable sweeteners available. Valued not only for taste, but for how long it lasted without spoiling. Honey doesn't rush, either. It keeps, it waits. There's something fitting about that. The scribes eat without hurry, small bites, long pauses. This isn't refueling, it's punctuation. The workday ends not with a bell or an announcement, but with food that signals closure. You feel it in your body almost immediately, a gentle settling, like a paragraph finally coming to rest. Someone jokes that honey cakes are proof the gods want people to relax occasionally. Another replies that if the gods wanted that, they wouldn't have invented math. The laughter is quiet and brief, just enough to ripple through the group before fading again. Historians still debate how often sweets like this were enjoyed by ordinary people versus reserved for special occasions. Watching the scribes now, you suspect the truth was flexible. Even disciplined societies understand the value of a small reward at the right moment. You notice how chewing slows your breathing naturally. There's no rush to swallow, no distraction pulling you away. The flavor anchors you in the present. It's hard to worry about anything while eating something this deliberately. Crumbs fall onto the ground, and no one cares. Tomorrow, there'll be dust again, mixed back into the earth. Everything cycles here, even snacks. A scribe licks a bit of honey from his thumb and sighs contentedly, leaning back farther than posture lessons technically allow. No one corrects him. The day's rules have softened. Evening has its own standards. You finish your cake and realize you're full in a very specific way, not stuffed, just satisfied. The kind of fullness that makes sitting still feel natural rather than forced. Your hands rest easily in your lap. Your thoughts move slower, stickier, in the best possible sense. The platter is cleared away quietly. The sweetness lingers in the air, faint but comforting. The stars are still there, the clay still drying, the numbers still adding up exactly as they should. And now, with honey on your tongue and night settling deeper around you, rest feels not just allowed, but inevitable. With the sweetness still lingering, conversation drifts back in, light and unstructured, like smoke that doesn't quite form shapes. This is the hour when scribes allow themselves to be human, rather than precise instruments of record. Someone clears their throat and mutters a comment about a tablet from earlier that absolutely refused to cooperate, as if the clay itself had opinions. A few nod in sympathy. One scribe adds that the clay always behaves perfectly when no one is watching, which earns a soft ripple of laughter. Scribal humor, you're learning, thrives on understatement. No punchlines. Just shared recognition of mild, persistent annoyances. This is supported by a widely accepted historical fact. Scribes occasionally added personal notes, jokes, or complaints into the margins of tablets. Archaeologists have found grumbles about difficult students, lazy co-workers, and even the quality of beer. The ancient world, it turns out, ran on quiet sarcasm. You listen, smiling to yourself, as one scribe recounts how an apprentice once copied the same line backward for an entire tablet before anyone noticed. The story is told gently, without cruelty. The mistake has matured into humor, which feels like the healthiest possible outcome. A lesser-known detail surfaces as someone mentions that these informal moments were often when knowledge was truly shared. Not during formal instruction, but during relaxed conversation, when no one was trying too hard. Complaints became lessons. Jokes carried warnings. Humor softened authority. You add a small comment of your own, something about how the stars at least don't smudge when you press too hard. It lands well enough. A few smiles, one raised eyebrow. You feel quietly accepted, which is surprisingly comforting. Historians still wonder how much of scribal culture existed outside official records. How many thoughts, jokes, and small frustrations were shared verbally and never written down. Sitting here, you sense how much history evaporated into evenings like this, leaving only faint impressions. Someone complains about sitting posture again, dramatically exaggerating the stiffness of his knees. Another replies that this is why the gods invented stretching. The group chuckles, and a few people demonstrate small, careful movements, rotating shoulders, flexing fingers. Even jokes lead back to care. The lamps burn lower now, flames shrinking, light softening further. Shadows blur faces into gentler outlines. Voices drop, not because anyone is tired yet, but because volume feels unnecessary. You notice how laughter here never spikes. It doesn't startle, it hums, then fades. The goal isn't excitement, it's release. Letting tension out without inviting more in. A scribe rubs his temples and remarks that tomorrow's numbers will be kinder after a good night's rest. No one disagrees. There's an unspoken respect for sleep here. Rest isn't laziness. It's preparation. As the conversation thins, pauses stretch longer between comments. Silence becomes comfortable again. No longer empty, but padded with shared understanding. You feel your eyelids growing heavier, not from boredom, but from ease. The jokes taper off, leaving behind a gentle warmth, the kind that lingers after a pleasant evening with friends. You sense the night shifting again, guiding everyone toward quieter rituals. The day has been acknowledged, processed, and gently set aside. Eventually, someone stands and announces, not with words but with action, that it's time to wash away the day. You follow the subtle migration toward a side space where shallow basins wait, already filled with water that reflects lamplight in slow, rippling patterns. The smell here is different, cleaner, faintly herbal, with a trace of oil that promises relief rather than luxury. You slip off your sandals and step carefully onto the cool stone. The sensation travels up your legs immediately, grounding and refreshing. A scribe nearby sighs audibly as he lowers his feet into the basin, as if this moment has been on his mind since mid-morning. You understand completely. Bathing like this is a widely accepted historical practice in Babylonian daily life. Full immersion baths existed, but most evenings involved simple washing feet, hands, sometimes arms, enough to remove dust and signal the body that work was finished. It's practical, restrained, and surprisingly effective. You kneel and dip your hands into the water. It's cool but not shocking, and the dust lifts away easily, clouding the surface for a moment before settling. There's something deeply satisfying about watching the evidence of effort dissolve. The day loosens its grip. A small jar of oil is passed around. Someone explains, casually, that a drop goes a long way. You rub it between your palms and massage it into your wrists and fingers. The scent is subtle, herbal, and calming, not trying to impress anyone. This isn't perfume, it's maintenance. A lesser-known detail slips into the conversation. Oils were often infused with plants thought to ease soreness or calm the mind. Whether they worked medicinally or psychologically is still debated. Historians still wonder how much of ancient wellness was chemistry and how much was belief. Sitting here, you suspect belief alone would be enough. You rinse your feet next, the water lapping gently at your ankles. The contrast between the cool stone and the warmth returning to your skin is enough to make you close your eyes for a moment. The city noise feels far away now, muffled by walls and routine. Someone nearby jokes that if scribes spent as much time washing as they did writing, they'd never get anything done. Another replies that clean feet make clearer thoughts. No one argues. The logic feels sound, especially right now. The basins are shared, the water refreshed as needed. There's no sense of hurry, no line forming impatiently. This is a communal pause, not a task to be completed efficiently. You notice how people instinctively lower their voices here, as if the water itself prefers quiet. You dry your hands with a cloth that feels rough but honest. No softness for its own sake. Still, the friction is comforting. A reminder that your body exists beyond your thoughts. Your fingers feel lighter, less tight, as if they've been gently convinced to let go. A scribe stretches his toes dramatically, wiggling them with exaggerated seriousness. Someone comments that this is the true secret of scribal longevity. The joke lands because it might be true. Caring for small, tired parts keeps the larger system functioning. The lamps reflect off the water one last time before the basins are emptied and set aside. Nothing ceremonial marks the end of washing. It simply finishes, like everything else tonight, without needing applause. You slip your sandals back on, the leather cool against clean skin. The difference is subtle but unmistakable. You feel reset, as if the day has been neatly folded and put away, rather than crumpled and discarded. As you return to the courtyard, the air feels cooler still, the night deepening. The city seems quieter now, as if everyone has collectively agreed to stop demanding so much from themselves. You breathe in slowly, enjoying the way the air moves more freely through you. Your body understands something your mind is just catching up to. Rest isn't a single act. It's a series of small permissions. To sit, to stretch, to wash, to stop carrying what you no longer need. And with the dust gone and the oil settling into your skin, you're ready for whatever the night offers next, which, thankfully, appears to be very little at all. You don't notice the music at first. It arrives the way evening does, here gradually, without announcement. A low, steady tone slips into the background, so subtle you might mistake it for the city itself humming. Then another sound joins it, a soft rhythm tapped out on wood or stretched skin, unhurried and forgiving. You settle again, your clean hands resting easily in your lap, and let the sound reach you instead of leaning toward it. This is how it's meant to work. Music in Babylon isn't performed at you. It happens near you. A scribe nearby hums along, barely louder than a breath. His voice isn't trained, but it's steady, familiar with repetition. Others murmur short phrases in response, lines you don't fully understand, but somehow don't need to. The effect is immediately calming, like hearing someone read aloud in the next room. This connects to a widely accepted historical fact. Music and chant were common parts of Mesopotamian daily life, used in temples, education, and informal gatherings. Instruments existed, yes, but just as often, sound came from voices repeating simple patterns until they settled into the bones. You notice how the chants avoid sharp changes. No dramatic rises, no sudden stops. Everything flows in loops, phrases returning again and again with minor variations. It's hypnotic in the gentlest possible way. Your breathing sinks without being instructed to. A lesser-known detail emerges as someone explains quietly that certain chants were used specifically to ease the mind after long periods of concentration. Not prayers exactly, not songs either, more like mental palate cleansers. Sound used as a soft eraser. You close your eyes briefly and realize you can still feel the rhythm in your chest, even when you're not actively listening. The body remembers patterns faster than the mind does. That seems to be the theme of the evening. Someone taps a simple beat with their fingers, too softly to disrupt the calm. Another scribe smiles and shakes his head, joking that if the rhythm gets any slower, it might fall asleep before they do. A few quiet chuckles follow, then fade naturally back into the sound. Historians still wonder how standardized these chants were. Were they taught formally, or did each group develop its own versions over time? Sitting here, you suspect the answer didn't matter much. Familiarity mattered more than precision. The lamps burn low now, their light barely more than a glow. Shadows melt into the walls. Faces become impressions rather than details. You feel your awareness widening and softening at the same time, thoughts drifting farther apart. The music continues, without urgency, without expectation. No one is trying to reach a conclusion. There's no final note to wait for. It's the kind of sound that could go on indefinitely, and the fact that it won't makes it even more precious. Your head dips slightly, then steadies. Not asleep, just heavy, comfortable. The chants feel like they're carrying you rather than asking anything of you. This is rest disguised as participation. Eventually, the sounds thin out. One voice drops away, then another. The rhythm slows until it's barely there, then stops entirely. Silence returns, but it's different now, layered, warm, and padded by what came before. No one comments on the end. It doesn't need acknowledgement. The music did its work quietly and stepped aside. You sit in the after-silence, feeling the calm settle deeper, knowing the night is guiding you gently toward its final, quieter stretches. You drift next, not because anyone tells you to move, but because the space itself suggests it. The courtyard thins as a few scribes rise and head toward a long, low room nearby. You follow, steps quiet, as if the floor might be listening. Inside, the air feels different, cooler, drier, and weighted with silence that has been practiced over centuries. This is the tablet room. Not a workshop tonight, not a place of effort, but something closer to a sanctuary. Shelves line the walls from knee-height to well above your head, stacked with clay tablets arranged in patient rows. They don't sparkle or impress at first glance. They simply exist, dense with recorded lives. Libraries like this are a widely accepted feature of Babylonian scholarly life. Collections of tablets were carefully stored, labeled, and preserved, often within temples or administrative buildings. Standing here, you feel the gravity of that effort, not heavy, just steady. Knowledge doesn't rush, it waits. You move slowly between the shelves, careful not to brush against anything. The tablets give off a faint mineral scent, dry and calm, like old stone, warmed by sun long ago. There's comfort in their stillness. Every one of them was once soft clay, pressed by hands like yours, then set aside to harden and last. A scribe nearby rests his palm lightly against a shelf, not reading, just acknowledging what's there. This isn't study time. It's proximity. Being near stored knowledge, without needing to engage with it, feels oddly luxurious. A lesser-known detail surfaces as someone whispers that scribes sometimes came here simply to sit. No writing, no copying, just presence. The tablets themselves were believed to encourage focus and calm, reminders that thoughts could be held safely outside the mind. You lower yourself onto the floor, against a wall, legs stretched carefully. The stone is cool through your clothing, grounding, without being uncomfortable. Your back relaxes into the surface, and you realize how rarely you allow yourself to lean fully into stillness. Historians still wonder whether ancient libraries were designed with acoustics in mind, or whether the quiet was simply a cultural habit. Either way, sound behaves differently here. Footsteps soften. Breathing feels louder than it should. Then, gradually quieter as you match the room. Someone suppresses a yawn, covering their mouth politely. Another smiles without comment. Fatigue isn't shameful here. It's expected. Even knowledge needs sleep, apparently. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the tablets as small anchors, each one holding a thought so you don't have to. Worries feel less urgent when you remember they can be written down, stored, and returned to later. The mind loosens its grip. A scribe murmurs something about how the room smells like patience. No one laughs out loud, but the sentiment lands. You smile quietly to yourself. The lamps here are minimal, placed low and shaded, their light barely reaching the ceiling. Darkness pulls gently above. Not threatening, just unused. Your eyelids feel heavier now, your thoughts slower, stretching out like cats in warm places. You breathe in, slow and even, and let the silence do what it does best. It doesn't empty you, it organizes you. Everything unnecessary drifts to the edges, leaving only the steady awareness of being here. Safe, surrounded by the calm evidence that humans have always tried to understand, record, and rest. You don't fall asleep in the tablet room. Not fully. Instead, you hover in that soft in-between state where thoughts lose their edges and drift like silt in slow water. Eventually, someone rises quietly, and the rest follow with the same unspoken agreement. Night still has one more gentle layer to offer. You move back outside, where the air has cooled enough to feel almost silky against your skin. The city has changed again. Fewer footsteps now, fewer voices. Babylon at this hour feels like it's holding its breath, careful not to wake itself. A scribe settles onto a mat nearby and stretches out, hands folded loosely on his chest. Others follow, arranging themselves with the easy familiarity of people who've done this thousands of times. This is where rest begins to blur into sleep, but never abruptly. Babylon eases you there. Someone speaks quietly about dreams, the way people do when they're already half inside them. Dreams matter here. That's a widely accepted historical fact. Babylonian scholars recorded dreams carefully, sometimes treating them as messages, sometimes as symbols, sometimes as meaningless noise the mind makes when it's tired. You lie back too, looking up at the stars again, though they feel farther away now, softer. Your body sinks into the mat, and the ground holds you without comment. There's relief in not having to sit correctly anymore. A lesser-known detail drifts into the conversation. Not all dreams were considered important. In fact, many scribes believed most dreams were simply the mind reorganizing itself after a long day. That idea feels surprisingly modern and deeply reassuring. Someone jokes that if every dream meant something, no one would ever get any rest. A quiet agreement follows, then silence settles again. Historians still wonder how seriously ordinary people took dream interpretation versus how much it was professional ritual. Lying here, you suspect most people just enjoyed talking about dreams the way people always have, with curiosity, skepticism, and a little amusement. Your breathing slows. The mat feels warmer now, shaped slightly to you. Sounds from the city arrive softened and distant, like they're traveling through layers of fabric before reaching you. Somewhere, a guard calls out, his voice calm and unhurried, more reassurance than warning. Your thoughts loosen further. Images drift through stars, clay, honey, water without needing to connect. This is the mind doing what it's always done at the edge of sleep, sorting gently, without pressure. A scribe near you mutters that tomorrow's dreams will probably be about numbers again. Someone else replies that at least numbers don't shout. The comment earns a single, quiet laugh, then fades. You close your eyes, not committing fully to sleep, just testing the idea. Your body accepts immediately. There's no tension left to negotiate with. Whatever messages dreams might carry can wait. Tonight, rest is enough. The night deepens, wraps itself around the city, and holds you there, suspended between thought and silence. Sleep doesn't claim you all at once. It approaches politely, pausing at the edge to see if you're ready. Your eyes open again briefly, not from urgency, but from curiosity. The city sounds have shifted. They're fewer now, more deliberate, like notes left behind rather than conversations. You hear the night watch before you see them. Sandals on stone. A soft clink of metal. Voices low and measured. These guards aren't here to alarm anyone. They're here to be predictable, and that predictability is the point. This is a widely accepted historical fact. Ancient cities like Babylon maintained night watchers to guard gates, monitor fires, and reassure sleeping residents that someone was paying attention. Security here isn't dramatic. It's routine, which makes it comforting. You turn your head slightly and watch a pair of guards pass along the wall, their oil lamps casting slow-moving shadows that stretch and contract like they're breathing. One pauses, scans the street, then continues. No tension, no suspicion, just presence. A lesser-known detail comes up quietly from someone still awake nearby. Night watchmen often used familiar routes and repeated calls, not just to signal safety, but to help people sleep. Hearing the same voice at the same hour meant everything was as it should be. You realize how much you rely on similar sounds in your own life. A distant car, a ticking clock, the low hum of something working in the background. Silence alone can be unsettling. Patterned sound reassures. A guard calls out the hour, his voice carrying gently through the streets. The words aren't sharp, they're rounded, practiced, shaped by years of repetition. The call doesn't demand attention. It offers it, briefly, before moving on. Historians still wonder how people in ancient cities perceived safety at night. Was fear common, or did routine dull it? Watching the guards now, you suspect familiarity did most of the work. When protection becomes boring, it becomes effective. You settle deeper into the mat, pulling the edge of your cloak closer. The ground is cool, but your body has warmed the space beneath you. The stars are still overhead, but you don't feel the need to look anymore. You trust they're doing what they always do. Someone nearby shifts, sighs softly, and then stills again. The city breathes around you, slow and steady. Walls hold, gates stand. Lamps burn low, but reliable. Your thoughts drift in smaller circles now. No long narratives, just fragments. A wedge pressed into clay, honey on your tongue, water over your hands. A star rising exactly where it promised it would. The night watch fades into the distance, their footsteps dissolving into the background of the city. You don't miss them. You know they're still there, continuing their loops, keeping time so you don't have to. Your breathing evens out further. Each inhale feels unnecessary to manage. Each exhale arrives on its own. Sleep is closer now, not as an event, but as a gradual dimming. You let yourself sink into that dimness, trusting the city's routines to carry you the rest of the way. Morning doesn't arrive yet, but you can feel it somewhere far off, waiting patiently behind the dark. For now, the night still belongs to you. You shift slightly, not to get comfortable, comfort already has you, but to acknowledge that last quiet awareness before sleep fully settles in. The mat beneath you has molded itself to your shape. Your body feels heavier than before, but in a pleasant, anchored way. Like a book that's finally been set down after a long day of being carried. The city around you is almost completely still now. Even the guards' calls have softened into memory. This is the moment scribes know well. The space where effort officially ends. A widely accepted historical fact is that Babylonian workdays followed the rhythm of light and darkness closely. When the night deepened like this, rest wasn't optional or postponed. It was expected, respected, and allowed to arrive naturally. You think briefly of the tablet you touched earlier, now resting somewhere nearby, slowly hardening, clay becoming permanent. Thoughts becoming something that can wait until tomorrow. There's relief in knowing that nothing else is required of you right now. A lesser-known detail comes to mind as you recall something a scribe mentioned earlier. Some tablets were intentionally left unfired if they weren't urgently needed. Temporary records for temporary concerns. Even Babylon understood that not everything needed to last forever. Historians still wonder how consciously people separated work identity from personal identity in the ancient world. Lying here, you suspect the boundary was clearer than it often is now. When the tools were put away, they stayed put. You didn't carry the stylus into your dreams. Your breathing is slow and deep now, rising and falling without effort. Each breath feels like it travels farther than the last, spreading warmth through your chest, your shoulders, your hands. The last bits of tension loosen quietly, without ceremony. A final half-formed thought drifts through your mind, something about stars, or numbers, or honey, but it dissolves before it can finish. That's fine. Thoughts don't need conclusions to leave. The city holds you. The walls stand. The river moves steadily nearby. Somewhere, tablets wait on shelves. Stars follow their paths, and tomorrow will unfold exactly when it's supposed to. You don't need to witness any of that. Sleep arrives now, not as a sudden drop, but as a gentle closing. Like a door eased shut by someone who knows you're already safe inside. You remain here, wrapped in quiet, breathing slowly and evenly, as if the night itself has learned your rhythm and decided to match it. Nothing pulls at your attention anymore. Nothing asks you to prepare, remember, or respond. Imagine the city fading further, not disappearing, just softening, edges rounding, sounds dimming, details blurring into something kind and indistinct. The stars above continue their calm work without needing your eyes. The river flows without needing your thoughts. Your body knows exactly what to do now. Each breath sinks you deeper into rest, like warm sand settling gently around you. There is no rush to sleep, and no effort required to reach it. You are already where you need to be. If a thought appears, let it pass like a cloud drifting across a familiar sky. You don't have to follow it. Another calm breath arrives, steady and reliable, carrying you further into ease. You are safe. You are unhurried. The night is doing its job, and you can let it.